Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Healthy Living with Chef AJ. My very special guest tonight is Dr. Michael Klaper. Dr. Klaper has been a practicing physician with over 40 years' experience in both general practice and acute care. He is a gifted teacher, clinician, and author of many successful books and videos on cholesterol-free nutrition. Dr. Klaper has contributed to the making of two PBS television programs, Food for Thought and Diet for a New America. And I can honestly say that we have had more questions sent in for Dr. Klaper than any other guest I've had so far. So please welcome Dr. Klaper.
Well, thank you, Chef AJ, and hello to all the listeners. I'm honored to be with you. It should be a lovely discussion.
This is so exciting. Before we jump into the questions, I want to learn a little about you, even though I know you, some of our listeners may not, but I have to say one thing. One of the things I often ask my guests are, who inspired you? And a few weeks ago on the show, I interviewed Dr. Jay Gordon. And without hesitation, when I said, who inspired you, the first words out of his mouth were Dr. Michael Klaper. Isn't
How
that
nice
nice?
to hear that.
I
Oh,
know.
he's such a lovely man.
And
Yeah.
he's your colleague. And I thought that was really nice. So we have so many questions, as you know, because I faxed you 9 pages yesterday. But before we jump into the questions, maybe tell us a little bit about how a good old Chicago boy who went to a traditional medical school ended up being pretty much the most renowned and beloved doctor in plant-based nutrition. So tell us a little bit about that trajectory.
Oh my. Do you have an hour?
Well, I do
Just
have an
briefly.
hour.
We do. We have more important things to talk about. Briefly, yes, it was a convergence of two powerful forces in my life. I graduated medical school from the University of Illinois when I was 24. And I had spent a lot of my training in the trauma unit at Big Bad Old Cook County Hospital, and my nights were filled with violence, with shotgun blasts and stabbings,
Wow.
and I knew I wanted to get the violence out of my life and become a truly peaceful man inside and out. And at the same time, I was working in operating rooms during my internship and residency. I was going to be an anesthesiologist. And day after day, I'm putting people to sleep and watching surgeons open their chests and open their arteries and pull this yellow guck out of their arteries that is called atherosclerosis that eventually winds up killing them. And one day I was watching a procedure, and the surgeon pulled this stuff out, and I thought to myself, boy, that stuff looks like chicken fat. And a little voice on my shoulder said, there's a good reason why it looks like chicken fat. It is chicken fat,
Yeah.
and cow fat and pig fat and all the fat of the slow animals people were eating when they had a fork in their hand and the animals walking by their table. And at the same time, the violence issue was really important to me. And one night, I was still eating meat, and one night over a steak dinner, I was pontificating to a friend about wanting to end the violence in my life. And he said, that's very nice, but if that's what you want to do, you might want to start with that piece of meat on your plate there, because your desire for the flesh of the animal in your mouth there is you're paying for the death of the animal.
Right.
And that same voice said, he's right. And I just couldn't escape that. And I just had to answer to that higher truth. And so that was the end of my meat eating. Shortly thereafter, as I adopted a plant-based diet, 20 pounds of fat melted off. My pressure had been elevated. It returned to normal. And I felt great waking up in a lean, light body every day. And it just felt more peaceful going to bed at night, knowing that I reduced the amount of suffering in the world. I wasn't participating for it, and
Right.
more so propagating it with my purchases. So all the way around, it all just kind of fell in coherence. I became a plant-based physician, and little did I know when I graduated, but that would really become the cornerstone of my medical practice, because it's turned out to be by far the most effective therapeutic instrument I can employ in my medical practice to help patients overcome these fearsome diseases of high blood pressure and diabetes and obesity and clogged arteries. It's just the most powerful therapeutic tool going. So at this point, there's nothing for me to do but be the best plant-based physician I can be, and medicine's become fun. People get healthier in our practice. They get leaner and healthier.
Isn't it great now that you're seeing people get better instead of just giving them pills and procedures? It must be very gratifying.
Oh, it's yeah. I go out of the office smiling every day, and I can't help but muse how the cycle is going around. When I was a young doc working the intensive care units and emergency rooms, we say, oh, well, let's put him on the beta blocker for his arrhythmias and this hypertensive agent and this antibiotic, and we'd pile on the medications. Now, after 40 plus years of medicine, now the fun is, oh, we can stop this medicine. Oh, let's get him off that one. Oh, he doesn't need that one anymore. Now the fun's getting him off of their
Right.
pills and keeping him out of the hospital.
It's like you're
It's a
practicing
delightful
you're practicing in reverse,
inversion.
so to
Yeah,
speak. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's a very very gratifying form of medicine to practice. I really feel I'm really helping people, not just perpetuating
Right.
their illness and their wounds. Yes.
And how long ago did you have this epiphany that to get the violence out of your life, you first needed to get it off of your plate?
Right. This is 1980. 1980. So it's been
Wow,
what it is,
it's
40
been
years
close to
now.
close
Yeah.
to 40 years.
Close to 40 years there, right? Yes, I
Wow.
had been I see. It was the seeds were planted the first 6 or 8 years before that, but it took me about 6 years in general practice before I finally. And when I went back for anesthesia training, is
Wow.
when the
Well,
bell finally rang there.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I love about you, Dr. Clapper, and is that you're not afraid to mention the animal part of this equation. And we know that it's the best diet for health, but so many of the other plant-based doctors won't even go where you and Dr. Greger, I think, are the only two that will say about the compassion for animals. And I think that's why you have a special place in our hearts, because you take them into consideration as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how arrogant can we be to think that we are the only thing that matters on this planet, and no other sentient animals feel pain and suffering, and the grotesque scale now at this point. That was 1 million chickens an hour are
Oh
being
my
killed.
gosh.
It's gotten so out of any proportion at this point that and it's destroying the planet.
Right.
And I'm a passionate environmentalist, and the forests are being leveled, and the soils are eroding, and the water's depleting, all to make animal flesh. The vast majority of it, and we just if we just change our diet to a plant-based diet, everything gets better. The
That's
bodies
right.
get better, the planets get better, the animals, everything gets better. And so it's so writ large at this point. I'm amazed that my colleagues are resisting so much
Yeah.
at this point. But they'll the light is slowly coming on. There's hopeful signs. The dawn is finally breaking among my colleagues
Well,
and the public. Mm-hmm.
I hear we can add movie star to your credentials now because you did a wonderful job in the movie Cowspiracy.
Oh, that was a lovely film, and a very important one. Good for them. That's such an important question to be asked. Why aren't the environmental groups talking about the
Mhm.
driving force behind their reason for existence?
Mhm.
And the same question, of course, my medical colleagues as well. Why aren't you looking at the cause of these diseases? And it all comes down to the same thing. They want to give up their hamburger. They don't want to give up. My colleagues don't want to give up their filet mignon and their
Oh.
lobster thermidor, and so they can't talk about it to their patients.
Yep.
And
Well, why should they?
they
They can just take a statin, right?
oh, sure, absolutely, much easier, and everybody makes money that way. Yes, and it's hard not to be cynical, but they're just trapped in their fear and their and the it's a fear-based medicine. You order these tests, put on pills because you're afraid you're going to get sued if you don't. And it's become a fear-based medicine. And but how about reaching out and say, what's the real cause here? Why is this woman sitting in front of me, 40 pounds overweight with clogged arteries and high pressure and clogged up insulin receptors, giving them diabetes? It's what they're eating. It's the food. Just look
Right. It's
at
the
it,
food.
and it's
You
the
know,
food.
what I worry about, Dr. Clapper, is that you and Dr. McDougall and Dr. Gordon are all roughly the same age, and Dr. Ethelson and Campbell are a little bit older. Who's going to fill your shoes? You're going to have to be
Uh,
around at least another 40, 50 years.
Well, I'll be around as long as it takes, but that's a really hopeful sign. Let's see, where was this? At the last VegSource meeting down in Los Angeles, there was a lovely cardiologist from Montefiore Hospital in New
Oh,
York,
yeah,
Dr. Robert Osfeld.
Yes.
How about that? And a cardiologist, no less. He woke up. The light goes on. Once, they say once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain.
That's right.
And it's starting to happen. And the cardiologists, they see the studies, they see the Ornish and the Esselstyn studies. The very disease they're spending all their waking hours trying to overcome with stents and statins and bypasses. It's the food, and when when the light finally goes on, you can't really turn your back on it, and you'll see the doctors one by one, the ones of integrity, finally have to say, listen, it's the food. We got to talk about this. And Dr. Ostfeld did, lovely man and a courageous man, and he brought Dr. Esselstyn in to go grand rounds at Montefiore Hospital and Dr. Ornish, and he's planting seeds, and it's slowly going to turn, though maybe not so slowly. It might just be a sudden, like an iceberg calving, that suddenly, when they wake up, that we got to get real about this. So if we keep applying the lubricants and the pressure there, eventually it will change. It has to.
Well, you mentioned Dr. Ostfeld, and we're going to be interviewing him next year, but he is one of the most eligible plant-based bachelors. Unfortunately, you are no longer eligible, so congratulations. I know you married lovely Elise this year in April in Hawaii, so mazel tov on your marriage.
Thank you very much. I'm a very happy man.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. You really are. You got a great job, a great wife. The only thing you need now is really a dog, and that's it. You'll be fine.
Really, if I wasn't traveling so much, we would get one. I keep promising Elise when we really settle down somewhere, when I'm off the road there, because she does too.
Yeah,
we'll get lots of animals and make them
dogs.
all comfortable.
Okay,
yes,
well,
she does.
Well, I guess we'll just jump into the questions. Now, I sent you a bunch of questions, and what I did is I sort of kind of combined them because a lot of them were repetitive. But if you don't mind, before we ask the ones that you received, two of your friends actually got the questions in late, but you like both of these gentlemen, so I promised I would sneak in their questions. One is John Pierre, and he wanted to know, is it necessary for all vegans to take DHA, in your opinion?
In theory, no. DHA, for people not aware, this is a long-chain fatty acid. This is an omega-3 fatty acid, and it's absolutely essential. We need it to make hormones, to make our skin oils, to make our cells healthy. And our body makes it out of the linolenic acid, the flaxseed oil, the omega-3 types. It's in not in flax oil, but in flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, dark green leafy vegetables. If you eat the amount of these that we really should be eating, everybody, for all sorts of reasons, not just omega-3, but everybody should have at least one large helping of dark leafy greens every day, and two's even better, one at lunch and at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
If you really do that, and you have these lovely green salads, because there's omega-3s in the greens, and you have these lovely green salads, and you sprinkle a tablespoon or two of ground flax seeds or hemp seeds on it, and you really do throw a handful of walnuts in there. You probably don't, and you chew it up really, really, really well, so your enzymes can really get to it and absorb it. No, you probably wouldn't need to take it. And if you're really eating the diet we all should be, no. But in reality, most of us are happy if we get one salad in a day and an apple or whatever. And if you really know that you're scraping bottom on the omega-3s, plus you're showing symptoms of dry skin, depression, those things aren't splitting nails there. At that point, you want probably get some DHA. And just so people know here, this is the stuff that's in fish oil, but fish do not make this. Do not rely on fish oil for this. It's made by algae. All these omega-3s are made by plants, as you notice from the greens and the flax, etc. These are all plants. And it's algae cells in the ocean that make the stuff. Fish swim in the ocean with their mouths open, swallowing the algae, and it's the algae DHA that winds up in the fish's flesh. And you can kill the fish and crush it and get the fish oil out, but it's really algal DHA that you're getting. Well, if anybody hasn't heard, we're running out of fish. We're clear-cutting the oceans, and those that are left are full of mercury and pesticides. We shouldn't eat them anyway. So now, don't use fish oil. The DHA is available because they are now culturing these algae cells in big vats of pure seawater and harvesting the DHA directly. So when you go to the health food store, don't get marine DHA. That comes from the fish. You want to see on the label it says algae derived, and if you do that, cool. 300 milligrams is what's in one veggie cap, one or two at the most, a couple times a week. Probably would meet anybody's needs if they really need it. No more than that. More is not better.
Right.
And but again, eat your greens, have your walnuts, have your flax seeds, and you probably won't need it.
Yep. Is there a blood test that people can take to see if they're deficient, or should just go by clinical outward signs?
Yes, there is a test. Not cheap, but Genova Labs, I think, GNOVA has one. It's a little finger stick test. Or Metametrics Lab, one of the two of them. They send you a little envelope, a little card there, a little stylet, and you prick the finger and you put 5 drops of blood on the little circles there and send it back to them. And you'll get back an analysis. I think $150 somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you can do that, and any health practitioner can order that. Your chiropractor, your naturopath. But nowadays, probably if you look online, if you just Google finger stick test for omega-3 fats, there's commercial labs will probably just do it for you. I suspect with Life Extension probably just do it for you if you just ask them. But yes, you can. Or if you just know that you're just not getting the omega-3s you should, then you can't hurt to just take one capsule every few days. I think that'd be all you really need to do.
Right. And they sell it at True North where you work if people want a really good quality brand.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah.
We sell it here, but I don't push vitamins. I'm happy people get them anywhere. I'm not
Sure.
here to
Well,
sell
I'm just
vitamins.
mentioning it because that's
Yeah,
where I
fair enough.
because
Okay.
I love True North. So any plug we can give them. You mentioned about how we're running out of fish. It's amazing. The insatiable American appetite is is not only destroying their health, but their own health, but our planet at the same time.
Oh, it's a tragedy. And I'm a passionate environmentalist. I've been hiking the forest in Wisconsin since I was a boy. And I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes, and from 10,000 feet, you can see what we're doing to the planet. You see the forest scalped off the hillside. You see the rivers running brown with topsoil. You see along the coast there. You see the algae blooms from all the fertilizers coming off the farm fields. It's to grow animal flesh. The vast majority of corn and soybeans and what water is used for in this country goes to animal feed.
Yeah, animal production.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just destroying it and destroying the planet. And it's not our planet anymore. It's the kids. I deliver babies and the baby comes into the world and I feel like apologizing to the child for what we've done. That world this child's got to grow up in. It breaks my heart what we've done. And we've got to stop doing it. It's not fair anymore. It's their water, it's their soil, it's their air, and their children, so we really do have to take a step back and say,
wake up.
And have a little humility about this.
And wake up. People need to wake up.
And wake up. Absolutely. Eat plants, and it all gets better.
Yeah,
at
exactly.
every level.
So our good friend Ryan Flegel says hello, and he has a question about acid reflux. He wants to know, how do you know when you have acid reflux? What are the steps to recover, and how long does recovery take?
Oh, boy. Okay. So the body's just so amazing and beautiful. When you chew up food and swallow it and it drops down into your stomach, it has to traverse this muscular tube called your esophagus, about 14 inches long, and little waves of contraction go down the esophagus and push the food into the stomach. Once the food's in the stomach, the stomach wall gets stretched, and that's the cue for the stomach wall to secrete hydrochloric acid. And it's amazing to see through a scope cascades of droplets of acid just cascade off the wall of the stomach. But this is potent acid. This is 10th normal hydrochloric acid. It'll burn a hole through linoleum. And now your stomach lining has a special mucus coating that makes it impervious to the stomach acid. But your lower esophagus is not impervious. So you don't want that acid refluxing back up in your lower esophagus. And to prevent that, there is nature has a little valve, the lower esophageal sphincter, right where the esophagus plugs into the stomach, right at the level of the diaphragm, which is a horizontal sheet of muscle that separates the abdomen from the chest. But this is not a very strong sphincter. It's not a strong valve. It's a fairly fragile little ring. And we're not very gentle with it. We burn it with hot liquids. We poison it with alcohol. We chemically injure it with too much cayenne pepper and hot salsa. And we drink phosphoric acid in soft drinks. We're really not gentle with the sphincter. And then we're in such a hurry. We're biting a sandwich, 2 chews, boom, and this big bolus of unchewed sandwich goes down and mechanically stretches the sphincter open. and all these things start weakening that ring of muscle, and suddenly it's not so tight. And people, especially if you have extra belly fat, when you sit down, there's pressure underneath your stomach that pushes the stomach up, which further distorts the valve. And so when then people lay down, stomach in their acid in their stomach can reflux into their lower esophagus, and that has a couple of effects. One, it usually hurts. This is the classic feeling of heartburn. The name sounds strange, but the reason why it has that name is that the esophagus runs immediately behind the heart, and if the acid refluxes up into the heart, up into the esophagus, and inflames the lining, you'll feel it right behind the heart. And people say, "Oh, heartburn," but it's really esophagitis is what they're feeling. And when you look down with a scope, the lining is red and raw and angry. It's a chemical burn, and it's not good to have this because it hurts, but it also can erode into the blood vessels there and set off terrible intestinal bleeds, or set off, if it carried on long enough, you keep irritating it, you can set yourself up for nasty esophageal cancer.
Wow.
So that's right. So you don't want to put up with GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, for year after year after year. And so one way is you just feel the heartburn. But the second that people and even physicians aren't often aware of is this mechanism. People with reflux will lay down, go to sleep. And while they're sleeping, a little bit of this acid, just a few droplets, will trickle up the esophagus and pool in the back of their throat. And then they're asleep. But what happens is when they breathe in to take a breath in, as the air column blows over this little pool of acid in the back of their throat, a few droplets will be atomized and inhaled down into the lungs, into the windpipe and into the lungs, and they're inhaling this fine spray of hydrochloric acid down into the lungs. Well, this is very irritating, and these people wind up with chronic cough. Gee, doc, I don't know why I've got this cough all the time. I'm always clearing my throat, doctor. I don't know why. Gee, I've got this stuff dripping down the back of my throat. Never used to happen. And they think they have allergies, and then they see the allergist, etc. But what's really happening is their bronchial membranes are reacting to the stomach acid that's drizzling in there. And so this is the other symptom. There's heartburn, and then there's this unexplained onset of cough or postnasal drip. And this should alert the savvy physician that we're probably looking at acid reflux here. So these are the symptoms, how you know. It's diagnosed for sure by the doctor looking down there with a little scope. You see the red raw acid burns, but it's usually a diagnosis pretty obvious. A person's got heartburn and they're coughing when they wake up in the morning, so they should assume that they're refluxing. So what do you do? First of all, stop hurting your esophageal sphincter. It can heal. So stop the alcohol and the hot drinks and the soft drinks and all those things that are injuring the esophagus. Chew your food to a cream so you don't stretch that sphincter open and let it start healing up. And since the largest, the most intense stimulus for acid secretion is protein, don't polish off that leftover tempeh sandwich on the way back to bed at 9 o'clock at night. Don't drop a bolt of protein down your stomach. Summon up a big half pint of acid and then go lay down. For all sorts of reasons, you should be done with your eating by 6 in the evening there, but no protein eating after 6.
Right.
And so that'll help. Then water doesn't run uphill, neither does stomach acid. So I tell folks to take a couple of 4-inch blocks of wood and put them under the head legs of the bed, and physically raise the head of your bed so gravity helps keep the acid in your stomach all night. And then finally, while this lining is healing, and it should. And you should be on a plant-based diet so you melt away that belly fat that's just pushing underneath the stomach wall there. Then for just a month or 6 weeks, it's okay to take an H2 acid blocker in the evening only. I do not like these 24-hour PPIs, these protein pump inhibitors, that last 24 hours long. I'll tell you, once a day you can eat anything at the barbecue. Not a good idea. Mother Nature knows what she's doing. That stomach acid is there for a reason. You need it to digest protein, you need it to absorb iron, you need it to absorb vitamin B12, and you need to absorb calcium, and to shut it off with these acid blockers month after month after month after month. And people do. And people come to my office, every day I take my multivitamin and my acid blocker. And they think they're doing something good, and they're not. This is a way to set yourself up for iron deficiency and calcium deficiency and B12 deficiency. Let that acid come back. The Larry the Cable Guy never tells you when to stop the pill, and that's the problem. Well, next time I see Larry, I'm going to talk to him about this. But be that as it may, so that's why I like these H2 acid blockers like ranitidine and generic Zantac. They only last 12 hours. So you take it about 7 in the evening to turn off your nighttime stomach acid while you're laying down. But by morning time, by mid-morning, your acid is back, and you want it during the day when you're up and eating, and you're vertical, and that will keep the acid down in your stomach. So to use these acid blockers for nighttime acid suppression for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days at the most, while your lining is healing, that's acceptable. But again, don't stay on these things long term.
Right.
So that's how I handle the acid reflux, and people usually fades away. Esophagus will heal like everything else will if you just give this time. By the way, everything I said, if your listeners had a hard time taking notes, if they go to my website, www.drklaper.com, DOCTORKLAPER.com, this is on my video called Digestion Made Easy, where I take people on a trip through the digestive system. And we talk about the esophagus in the stomach, and they can view it on my website. So if you go to drklaper.com and click on videos there, you can see Digestion Made Easy, and everything I just said illustrated is on that video.
And all your videos are wonderful. I really love them all, and it's my favorite one is sugar, oil, salt, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've given that its presence. That's my favorite Dr. Clapper video. It's so well done. It's so entertaining.
Oh, good. And I'm honored that a professional like you finds it useful in your teaching.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding? Because it's just I get tired of saying the same thing, so I just give a video.
So did I. That's why I made the video. Exactly. Here, watch this. You'll understand.
You've done us all a favor. I love the Dr. Clapperisms, and two of my favorite ones is and I quote you all the time, the poison is in the dose. You say that quite a bit, and I love that. And the other one is that your body is never not looking. I love those. They're so true.
Yes, people think they're getting away with things. You're alone in the car there. Well, Dr. Clapper's not here. AJ's not here. I can stop into Dunkin' Donuts.
Exactly.
And fair enough, but okay, we're not there. But your body is never not looking.
Right.
Your bloodstream has to deal with whatever you eat. Your liver has to deal with it. Your arteries have to deal with it. Who are you kidding? You're walking around in that body, and it's only you deciding what's going into it. So make every bite count for health.
You mentioned about how some people take the acid blockers just so they can go eat at the barbecue, and that seems to be a mentality in this country that like they want a pill for every ill. They don't want to change their behavior or their lifestyle. They're looking for a pill when in fact the pill may alleviate some of the symptoms, but it never addresses the problem.
That's very well said. That's absolutely correct. And I tell people if you're walking along, you get a stone in your shoe, and it's rubbing on every time you step down. The stone is digging into your heel, and as the miles go by, you're starting to get a blister, it's starting to bleed. Well, it's getting inflamed. Well, you can take an ibuprofen, you can take an anti-inflammatory to suppress the inflammation. But there comes a point, you stop and take your shoe off and take the bloody stone out of there. Come on. And that's what we're trying to do here with these acid blockers and all this stuff. Get to the cause of it.
It's so obvious to some of us, but yet it eludes most of America, doesn't it?
These are dietary caused diseases, and it's just like putting diesel fuel in your gasoline-burning engine. The American diet is too oily a fuel, and it clogs up our fuel lines, our arteries, clogs up our spark plugs, our insulin receptors, and it's just the wrong fuel, and the results are predictable. There's no mystery about it. Our NIH spends billions of dollars every year looking for the cause of type 2 diabetes, the cause of childhood obesity, the cause of hypertension. It makes you want to take the biggest soapbox steps I can find, go down to see, stand on it, and yell as loud as I can. It's the food.
I
It's the
know.
food. Really, look at what they're eating. You'll see what the problem is, what the cause is. But as we know, there's lots of money and interest keeping that juggernaut rolling. But it's the people, one at a time, every individual. You don't have to pull in that fast food restaurant. I tell people, when you're tempted, pull out that 3-word magic wand, point it at the tempting food, and say the tempting stuff, and say that's not food. That's not food. Yeah, and it just isn't. It's no longer food at this point.
It isn't.
It's toxic. This toxic stuff's going to hurt you. And they say, pay the grocer now or the doctor later.
That's right. I love that.
I don't want their money. I don't want anybody's money. I want to be out on my bike having a good time here. So please, people, stay healthy. I'm overworked.
You mentioned being on the soapbox, and you would be a great one to go to Washington, D.C., because the first time I ever heard you speak was in 1987 at the Federal Building, and that was really my first introduction to you. So you'd be great being on that.
You were there that day. Oh, you were there that day. Lovely. That was an important event. That was a good event.
To you. It was fantastic. Absolutely. So this is quite an honor because we've had several MDs on the show, but this is the first time we've actually had another physician write in. And Dr. Dana Simpler of Columbia, Maryland, who is plant-based herself and is trying to have a more lifestyle-oriented practice, is seeing some problems in some of her patients. So she has several questions, but one of the ones I want to get to first, because she not only had it, but it seemed like so many people have had it as well. And it has to do with weight loss on a plant-based diet. So Dr. Simpler says she has a female patient who is about 30 pounds overweight, swears that she follows plant-based diet to the T based on Joel Fuhrman's Eat to Live program and cannot lose any weight. But so many people wrote in, and they swear they are following the most perfect version of a whole food plant-based SOS-free, which means sugar, oil, salt-free diet, and they can't lose weight. Before you answer, I just want to say that when we had Dr. McDougall on the show, we asked similar questions, and he said that all dieters are liars. And so I don't want to tell my listeners that they're liars, but I hear this all the time. People say, I do everything AJ says and they can't lose weight. There's so many people that aren't losing weight. So is it possible that maybe because their body's never not looking, is it possible that maybe they're underreporting? Or are you've had 40 years experience with people that have had all these diseases created with the knife and fork. And you're working at True North, where I know a lot of people are going because they want to lose weight. Are there some people that if they do the True North diet that they just can't lose weight?
Wow, such an important question. And I need to take a bit of a run-up on this. And before I do, let me say that we are putting out our new website next week, and people see that I too am initiating webinars. And on February 24th, the title of the webinar will be Thriving on a Plant-Based Diet, and we're going to be going into this very subject in great detail. So if you go to my website and look under webinars, when it's up next week, people can sign up for that, and we will be exploring that in detail. Now, that said, what's with this phenomenon? And let me take a big run up here. Realize that we're looking at a bit of a funhouse mirror here. Before we get into these specific issues here, the most important thing is to realize is that if you raise a child as a plant-based person who eats a whole food plant-based diet from infancy, and I've now seen 2 generations of vegan children raised as completely plant-based diet. They've grown up big, tall, healthy, bright, happy people. They are lean. They have no meat cravings. They are I've done blood tests on them. They are absolutely normally in balance. And with those kind of people, all of this is irrelevant. All these people are those who have grown up from infancy, having animal flesh smeared on their intestinal membranes from 7 months of age, when the child's still in the cradle, that jar of Gerber baby lamb and baby chicken is open, and for 3 times a day, animal flesh is slathered on their intestines, and all through infancy and childhood. By age 3, they're eating their Happy Meals, and they grow up eating animal flesh-based foods throughout their childhood, adolescence, their teens, their 20s, their 30s. And the body adapts to this, and the intestinal enzymes become the best for absorbing nutrients out of a high fat, high protein, high sugar food stream that the American diet has become. The liver enzymes set up to be the most efficient for dealing with this cholesterol laden food stream and high sugar and high fat, high protein. And it creates a metabolic set in the body. And after 40 years of that, the body's, it's like a 57 Chevy, and it's got its own grooves worn in there. Then someone sees Forks Over Knives, or they read Dr. Furman's book, or they hear this conversation, and the light goes on, and oh my, plant-based is where it's at, yay! And they change to a plant-based diet. And it's a wonderful thing. And the vast majority, let me just say, the vast majority of people get the results they're looking for. They trim down, their cholesterol comes down, they get off their pills. It really does work. But there is a subsection, and it's a small one, but not insignificant. And these are the people that the doctor is talking about, and I run into them, you do, who really seem to be stuck there. But realize the problem isn't in the plant-based diet. The problem is getting that 57 Chevy out on the racetrack and trying to turn it into, the Lamborghini that the 16-year-old kid who was raised as a vegan already is. And some folks are going to have a tougher time doing it, and it's going to take some time because everything has to change. The gut has to gear up, different intestinal mucus, the liver enzymes have to change, the intestinal microbiome, all the trillions of bacteria in the gut, there's got to be a turnover, and this takes months sometimes and years sometimes, and this is why people relapse or get frustrated that it's not working for them. And again, the problem really isn't in the diet. It's a perfectly adequate diet for the vast majority of people, and certainly if you raise a child as that. But we're looking at these subset of these folks that got, your mother didn't know, my mother didn't know, these people's mothers didn't know, but we all got seduced into this abnormal diet that has gotten them to this metabolic fix. And they're frustrated. Well, this diet doesn't work. Well, it's really because you got some gummed up crankcase oil down in there that you got to work on. So understanding that some of these people are going to run into it, and the issue really is optimizing the diet to the greatest extent possible, and then letting the magic happen. Here's what I suggest to these folks: if they are stuck, they're not losing those last pounds. There's either the first culprit is processed foods. When you eat whole rice, you eat whole corn, it just passes right on through you, burn it right off. But you send that grain to the miller. They grind it into powder called flour. The fiber is gone. The sugar leaps into the bloodstream. The insulin levels spike up. Fat is stored. Processed carbohydrates in all forms. Flour products, the breads, the pastas, but certainly the baked goods and the donuts and all that stuff, vegan or not. That's stuck city. That's got to go. This is a whole food, underlying a whole food, plant-based diet. And you fill your belly up with soups and salads and steamed greens and healthy whole grain starches or sweet potatoes. That's low calorie density. You can't hold weight on that.
Right.
But these concentrated, the desserts and the baked goods, etc., you can pack a lot of vegan calories in that stomach. So first of all, kick out all the processed foods. Eat food, not edible food-like substances out of brightly colored packages and boxes, like Michael Pollan says. So that's the first thing. Second is look for hidden oils. Oils, as I said in my video, the salt, sugar, and oil one, oil is liquid fat in a bottle. There is nothing healthy about olive oil, flax oil, all these things. They are pure fat. They are the white sugar of the fat world. And you can fill your stomach up with potatoes. And how many potatoes can you eat? 10 potatoes in a day. There's 160 calories in a potato. That's 1,600 calories. You'll lose weight on 10 potatoes a day.
Exactly.
But you put oil on them, that changes everything. So get rid of the processed foods, get rid of the oils. And then, and along that comes nuts and seeds, which are wonderful and essential part of the diet. But we're talking in a single handful a day, you can't sit in front of the TV and shovel in handfuls of cashews and almonds. And they're healthy, they're natural. No, they're way too concentrated. So So hold nut consumption, so you can do a small handful a day, and eat them with your greens. I like to put them in salad dressings and blender and blend them up. Pour it in the greens because it helps the fat-soluble vitamins be absorbed better. And the same, let's see, nuts and seeds, etc. And avocados, and careful of dried fruits. You can't shovel in handfuls of dried apricots either.
Sure.
Take 3 or 4, put them into water, let them soak overnight or at least for a few hours. They plump up in these lovely confections that you'll enjoy, and you'll only eat 3 or 4 of those. But don't shovel in the dried fruits. So that's another pitfall: the nuts and the seeds and the dried fruits, along with the baked goods and the oils. So clear those out. That's going to get most people over the hump. Now, the last thing has to do, they say timing in life is everything, and it's true for people who want to lose weight. And we just had a NASA scientist stay at True North for a 2-week fast, and he brought his breathing device where he measured how much carbon dioxide he's breathing out, how much oxygen he's breathing in, how much fat he's burning, how much carbohydrate he's burning, and it became very evident that while we're sleeping, the body is burning about a 50-50 mixture. You're burning half of what your energy burning is stored sugar called glycogen in your muscles and your liver, and half of it is fat that's stored under the skin and around the abdomen. So the body, just resting, burns about a 50-50 mixture of fats. And if you don't eat that, which is what a fast is, of course, and you're fasting while you're sleeping, you will steadily get leaner. You'll burn your fat stores down, and people lose weight, of course, on a fast.
Wow.
Now, we then get up in the morning, and your body is still burning 50-50 fat and carbohydrate. You want to keep burning that fat, but what do we do in the morning? We break fast. We have a breakfast, and after studying the physiology, even though it's a lovely thing to do, your whole family's around the table and you start the day, as far as your body goes, and especially if you want to have a fat-burning body that day, what you don't want to do is dump a bunch of carbohydrates down there at 7 or 8 in the morning, because your fat burning comes almost to a screeching halt, because your body will immediately jump on those carbohydrates, and you'll burn those preferentially, and you will store the fat. So if you want to keep burning the fats, they're talking now about intermittent fasting, and what Dr. Cronise said, and it makes sense. And this is just for people who need to lose weight and want to stay really lean and trim. If you're already lean and trim, and certainly if you're trying to gain weight, do not follow this advice. If you're trying to lose it, what he says is, the whole breakfast idea is silly, because it's not that you eat a bunch of cereal and orange juice, and you go out for the day and you're burning that cereal and orange juice. No, you're not. You're still burning the glycogen that was in your muscles. Most of that's going to be burned off as heat as you're working. That's not really energy that you're fueling yourself with. So he said, and it's mostly put out by the breakfast food makers that it's the most important meal of the day. It's not.
Wow.
And so he's saying, at a minimum, don't feel like you have to eat in the morning, and second, wait till you get hungry. And
Exactly.
listen to your body. The animals know that. When they're not hungry, they don't eat, and we shouldn't either. And really, wait till you get really hungry. It's probably going to happen around 10 or 11 in the morning. That's when you should. That's when to start your eating day. And during those 5-6 hours, you're continuing to burn the same fat at the rate that you were while you were sleeping. Then finally at 11 or noon, have your first meal of the day, and here's where you have the lovely soups and salads and greens and potatoes and all the whole plant foods that should constitute it. And in this time, you're eating carbohydrates, you're restoring the glycogen in your muscles. Fat burning is minimal. But then, that started at noon, he's saying by 6 o'clock be done. And your body will continue to burn off the dinner carbohydrates about another 4 hours. But by 9 or 10 at night, you're back into fat burning mode. And he's saying when you enter that window, don't disrupt it. Keep it going for that's at 10 o'clock at night. Get a good 10 or 12 or 14 hours off that. No need again till 10 or 12 the next day, preferably 12 the next day. Keep that fat burning window open a good 12 or 14 hours. And put your eating in that noon to 6 eating window, and you will become a fat burning machine. You will get leaner, no question about that. So this is the strategy, and against that, then we have to look. The people who graze all day, If you're a lean vegan and you want to put on weight, that's a great idea. But if you're trying to lose weight, don't be a grazer. Because you're just shutting down your fat burning if you're dropping carbohydrates down there every couple of hours. So so um, so that whole grazing, you just eat while you're hungry. Don't do that, and don't have a bowl of M&Ms by your vegan that they may be. That you're munching all morning, and that's starting that donut and coffee in the morning. That's the end of your fat burning. So don't be a grazer. Wait till you get hungry. Get your meals in between 6 and noon. Make them whole food, plant-based, no processed stuff, no oils, and take a good walk every day. And you don't have to burn a lot of calories, but being active keeps your bowels moving and makes you drink a lot of water, and you'll get lean. You can't hold weight on that regimen. And once you get down to your ideal body weight, you can be a little looser a little bit, but by and large, that's how I've been eating. I feel trim and healthy, and I'm encouraging my patients, especially the ones stuck, like you were mentioned, to tailor their eating schedule, as I mentioned, and that usually gives them the breakthrough that they're looking for.
Well, I don't know what to say. This is just so helpful because I eat this way without even knowing why. I mean, this is just because I'm not hungry in the morning, and I'm very lean now, and I basically eat 2 meals a day because I'm not hungry to eat breakfast, and so I'm doing what you're saying. This is fascinating. Though the doctor you quoted, Clinisi, how do we find out more? This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah, that's his name, Dr. Ray Cronise, Cronise. If you Google him, you'll find it. He's a fascinating man. He's not an MD. He's got his doctorate in chemistry, and he's a NASA scientist into space research. But boy, he came to human metabolism with that scientist mind, and he's really trying to tease out what is the truth of this. Because he went through the paleo world, he went through all the way around what is happening here, and it was very evident on the readouts from his machines what was going on when he was burning fat and when that fat burning stopped as soon as the carbohydrates hit.
So
carbohydrates are not evil, but eat them in their whole form in the right time of the day, and you'll be healthy.
This is amazing, and it would make sense because my naturally very skinny, always skinny husband, he wakes up in the morning and he's starving, and I don't lean that way, and I've never been hungry in the morning. So the bottom line here is also, if you're not hungry, don't eat just because
don't eat.
Right. Wow, thank you. I know that this is going to be wonderful because this is something that these people haven't tried, and I know this will work. So thank you. This is amazing.
You bet. Glad to help.
I was taking notes while you talked, and you said you're talking about raising vegan children, and you said that the plant-based diet is an adequate diet for the majority of people. So I have to wonder, is it not the best diet for some people? Because the reason I'm asking that is because we have a lot of failed vegans. There's a lot of people that were famous bloggers, and I don't want to mention their names, but we can talk privately, some really, really well-known vegans that are now eating meat. And so I'm wondering why are there so many failed vegans? And Dr. Simpler writes about some patients that just don't seem to be thriving on a vegan diet or a plant-based diet.
Absolutely, and that goes back to that metabolic tale that unfolds as we raise children in this society, and if you've been eating a flesh-based diet 3 times a day, which is grotesque when you think about it. Let me just stop and say, Americans eat flesh 3 times a day. Most Americans, maybe not your listeners, but most Americans have a piece of animal flesh, bacon and eggs in the morning, cheeseburger for lunch, chicken for dinner. There's a piece of animal muscle in the middle of the plate every 5 hours. We got to eat flesh like ghouls, like vampires. We got to eat flesh every 5 hours. Well, that's grotesquely imbalanced. When you think about it, not even mountain lions eat flesh 3 times a day. The tigers in the Indian jungles do not eat flesh 3 times a day. But we've talked ourselves. We use these carnivorous apes because we like the taste of flesh in their mouth, and this insatiable river of flesh that keeps pouring down our gullet may taste good with all the barbecue sauce, but it's doing nasty things to us, and we get a real dependency on it. because along with that flesh comes preformed nutrients from animal muscle. There's carnitine and creatine and myoglobin and hundreds of other nutrients from the animal muscle that we are capable of synthesizing ourselves, and the vegan kids grow up making it themselves. But if you've been raised on a flesh-based diet, your muscles don't have to make so much of the carnitine, the creatine, or whatever, because it's coming in preformed every 5 hours in the food. And you become really dependent upon this outside source of these animal muscle substances, and you got to make all your own carnitine, all your own creatine, and those are shorthands. I don't want people going out and buying bottles of creatine and carnitine tablets. That's shorthand for hundreds of other animal-based nutrients that we can make on our own, and vegan kids do, and vegan kids and adults raised as vegans do. They don't have these problems. There's no failed vegan person who grew up as a vegan. They don't fail. They don't relapse eating flesh. It's the folks who grew up in that meat swamp that are having a hard time getting out of it, because when they suddenly change and into a plant-based diet, all those nutrients disappear, and now they got to make it on their own. They got to gear up their own machinery, and some of them are not so successful. And as the months go by and the years go by, they draw down on their own stores of these substances. They're not quite as efficient as absorbing minerals as they should. They're not as efficient as absorbing vitamins as they should be, because their enzymes are looking for the easy to absorb animal stuff. And they wind up feeling less energetic, and they lose weight and muscle mass, and they start dreaming of steaks and salmon, and they eat some, and all that preformed animal muscle stuff washes back in their bloodstream. Oh, I feel better now, and I'm a paleo guy. I'm a flesh eater. But they're right on that score. But what are we watching? This is not natural human physiology. This is an acquired dependency fostered since infancy by a flesh-based diet, only possible because we're so filthy rich in this country we can afford to do it.
Yep.
And without being overly dramatic, they're suffering physical withdrawal symptoms. This is it's also telling a heroin addict you don't need it. Of course they need heroin. These people have a physical dependency on it.
Wow.
And you have to honor that. And these folks, as painful as it may to say this, and the word sticks in my throat, but some people have to make a more gradual transition. And to a completely plant-based diet. They have to honor that if they've been running that body on a flesh-based diet for 35 years, 40 years, it may take them 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months for their enzymes to gear up, their absorption to get better, their microbiome to change. Everything's got to change. And these folks may need a little hit of animal flesh once or twice a week just to top them up while their enzymes are gearing up. And a little bit on Monday, a little bit, the size of a deck of playing cards, a little bit as a glorified vitamin tablet. And you coast on that till Wednesday or Thursday, have another little hit, coast on that for a few days. Have it once or twice a week, not twice a day. And slowly, as the weeks go by and the months go by, their enzymes start gearing up, and their genes, their DNA changes, and genes that had been silenced from their meat-based diet start to wake up and produce enzymes, and they find themselves that they're able to synthesize their own nutrients, and the desire for meat fades away. And this happens in my office. I see these folks. I need my meat twice a week, doc. And 6 months later, they say, I think we're doing like twice a month now. And then 6 months later, they say, gee, I think I had like twice last winter. And then it slowly fades out of the diet. But these are folks may have to make a slower transition. So I don't begrudge these folks if they need that can of sardines or whatever it is once a week. Fine at this point.
Sure.
If they would shut down the meat industry, if everybody got their meat eating down to pot roast on Sunday or once a week, that would change everything for the better. So I don't make a big stand on got to be vegan or nothing.
Sure.
Find the smallest amount your body thinks it needs. Eat it as seldom as you can. Work towards getting rid of it all as possible. But if you need to have that once or twice a week for a year or two, okay. And if these people had been doing that, you wouldn't see these blog entries. And it's painful. Once you understand what happens to the animals, etc., you don't want to keep eating that stuff. But you got to recognize some nutritional emotional momentum that's been developed in your body, some realities that you got to deal with. And so that's what I have to say to these folks, and I have great compassion for them. But if they want to do it, they can make that transition. But they may have to have a little animal flesh once a week or twice a week till eventually it fades away.
This is so amazingly helpful because you're answering really the most difficult questions. Is there a book in your future? Because I need to listen to this call again because you're talking about really important stuff.
Yes, I'm writing a book actually. The working title is "To Be a Healer," and there will be a chapter on healing nutrition and dealing with these very issues. Absolutely. So yes, a book is in the works. So hopefully get it done this spring.
So you're not calling it "Your Body Is Never Not Looking."
Maybe that's the subtitle of it. That's a good one. Yeah, that's another book. Maybe it should be two separate books. It's a good idea. Thanks, AJ.
I love that you said there are no failed vegans who grew up as vegan. That is amazing.
Right.
Yep.
Sure.
This is the stuff people want to know. Okay, so what do you think is the best sweetener if we are not using sugar? How do you feel about stevia, erythritol, or xylitol?
Yes, none of them are great. But after a while, it just I really like it. What some raisins on my oatmeal does, and a chunk of cantaloupe in my mouth really does the sweet thing for me.
Yep.
But as far as getting to that question, because I know time is running short, to cut to the chase, the only quote safe sweetener is called erythritol. It's not metabolized, doesn't do bad things in the body. It's pretty benign stuff.
Wow.
All the other ones that you mentioned have adverse effects, and the xylitol does strange things to the intestinal bacteria. They makes them produce gas. It makes it like a laxative effect. It's not very gentle on your intestinal physiology. All the other ones, aspartame and saccharin, they have. It's chilling. Michael Greger's been very explicit about this as far as the mutations and the birth defects, etc., associated with a lot of these. And stevia itself is turning out to have some adverse effects in high doses. A drop or two, I suppose, is one of the more benign. But I think there's Coca-Cola started using it as a sweetener, and they started running into intestinal problems as well.
Wow.
And liver. I think it was hard on the liver, as I remember. There was metabolic problems with the liver with lots of stevia.
Wow.
So a drop or two in your tea probably is not a terrible thing. But erythritol is the safest. But
erythritol is made out of corn, and so many people that I've talked to have reported, gas and bloating from it.
Well, we're talking, a couple of drops in your tea, literally.
Right.
The rest of it is, if you're eating these, these energy bars and all that stuff with it, it's more processed junk.
Sure.
If you have some granola or have some muesli with some berries, and eat food, not edible food like substances out of brightly colored packs and boxes, and that's kind of what that stuff is.
Exactly.
So it's all a trick to fool your tongue. Eat real food. Have a chunk of cantaloupe and a couple of raisins, and get on with your day.
I think if you use these things, even like I tasted stevia for the first time, and I thought it was the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted. But the whole day I was craving sweets, and I think when you use these alternate things, I think it just makes you want sweets more.
That is an excellent point, Chef AJ. And in fact, there are studies showing that very thing. It keeps that sweet hunger alive.
Yeah.
And really, you want to let that recede, where you just, once a day, as I say, I'll have a couple of cantaloupe chunks or a couple of raisins, and it's enough for satisfies my sweet tooth. And that's the more appropriate way to handle that. You're right. It just keeps that voracious sugar demon going in your tongue there. Let him go into the cave and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And don't keep him alive with the stevia. I agree.
Yeah. So is it okay to drink alcohol occasionally?
As an old emergency room doc, I can tell you, it brings out the worst in people, but it is a toxin to every organ in the body. You look at Harrison's textbook of internal medicine, there's a toxicity syndrome for every organ in the body. It poisons liver cells, brain cells, nerve cells, stomach cells, heart cells. It kills cells. This is not a recreational drinking beverage. I don't care what it does to your cholesterol. You want to lower your cholesterol, stop eating it and eat a plant-based diet, and your arteries will heal. Don't use that as a rationale. Oh, well, the doctor says it'll lower my cholesterol and 2 glasses of wine. It paralyzes your immune system, so you can't eat up cancer cells. People who drink alcohol have a higher cancer risk. But you're always going to kill off a few brain cells and a few liver cells with every glass of wine, every glass of anything you have. So how many many brain cells do you want to lose with this drink? How many percentage points do you want to increase your breast
Wow.
cancer risk? Up to you, but no. The answer is no. It is a toxin. Ethyl alcohol is a poison to every tissue in the body. Do not drink it.
Wow.
There's non-alcoholic wines. And at the party, it's nobody's business what's in your glass, whether it's Perrier or gin. It's nobody's business. And think you have to drink ethyl alcohol and poison your liver and your brain to be social is really betraying your body. So the answer in my book is no.
Well, I completely agree with you. So I'm going to let you, if there's a question, there's obviously we couldn't get to all the questions, and I do apologize. They were wonderful questions, and I'm hoping maybe next year Dr. Klaper will come back and we can ask them again. But is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I had asked that you could have addressed?
Well, we covered the major issues. We didn't fill out the whole thing about the paleo thing. Let me just tell you, these people are just living on flesh and vegetables. It's a grotesque parody of humans were never flesh eaters. Like every caveman had a mastodon in the freezer and spent all day gnawing on animal flesh.
It's like the Flintstones.
Oh, exactly. That's a grotesque distortion. When you really they've looked at the studies, and they looked at the teeth of the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnons. There's starch grains up between their teeth. They were living mostly on starches that the women gathered. They were the ones who got us into survival mode there. But anyway, a flesh-based diet is not healthy. These people are setting themselves up for an epidemic of colon cancer, kidney failure, strokes, heart attacks, and there's a strong science behind every one of these mechanisms. If someone asked me if they wanted to cause a colon cancer, I said, simple, pack your colon full of meat 2-3 times a day and let that rub on your colon wall for 20 years and watch what you set off in there. But flesh spawns bacteria in the gut that puts out metabolites called TMAO that drives cholesterol into your artery wall. These people get lean, that's true, and there's a reason why, but and their cholesterol goes down. There's a reason for that, but don't take that as a sign of health. These people are clogging their arteries. They are setting themselves up for colon cancer, breast cancer. All this flesh is hard on the kidneys. They are writing themselves to a ticket to the dialysis machine. This is not a healthy diet. You cannot sustain good health on this year after year. People say, "Oh, I'm in ketosis. That's a good thing." No, that's not a good thing. That is an emergency state that the body can go in for a little while. But boy, you don't want to live in ketosis. That is another stressful state in the body. So this whole mythology around the paleo mythos is really harmful, and I would urge people don't be seduced by that. Wholesome plant-based diet.
So many doctors with best-selling books that are telling them to do this,
my gut gets tight when I hear these folks on TV and writing their books off this, and they're chirping away. This is a natural way to eat. No, it's not. And doctor, you're going to have, when the guy has blood in his stool and he's losing weight, I was eating paleo. What happened? Well, by then the cancer's already spread. This is not a healthy diet. And what are they talking about? Burgers for 9 billion people 3 times a day. It's a totally elitist, unsustainable, ecologically holocaustal diet. And it's an insanity that has to stop. We eat a whole plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet. If you have to, a little flesh once or twice a week, but your diet should be based on huge salads, hearty vegetable soups and stews, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, colorful fruits, whole grains, nuts and seeds, good walk every day, laugh a lot, do good work, enjoy this brief time we have on this planet, and don't live on animal flesh, and don't pay for the death industries that produce it, because it will come back. What goes around comes around.
That's right.
And we need to make an affirmation of life. You want your diet to be one based on life, and that's the bounty that grows out of the ground, and that's what we should focus on.
So people can go to your website, www.drklaper, doctor spelled DOCTORKLAPER.com. They can find you at True North Health, where you are one of the practicing medical doctors there. But let's say they can't get to True North. Now, can they still contact you and do a consult via phone or Skype? Is that still an option?
Absolutely. They will do this through True North. If they go to the True North website, True North Health, they'll see the phone number. You call there and arrange a phone or Skype consultation with me through the front desk. The number is 707-586-5333. 5555, and I'll be glad to. I do lots of phone and Skype consultations every week. And again, if people want to tune into my webinar on thriving on a plant-based diet, it will be on February 24th, and my new website will be up next week, where you'll be able to enroll there. So I hope everybody takes advantage.
And I'm happy to help you promote it. And I really recommend using Dr. Klaper as a tool in your tool belt. I've had Skype sessions with him, and they're just wonderful because you can see him, he can see you. He's just like going to your good old family doctor when I was little. And I remember I had this physical. I didn't want to go to a regular doctor, but if I didn't go, she would never treat me. And I needed, like, here I am, this healthy vegan, and she said I needed this and a flu shot and an pneumonia shot and a mammogram and a colonoscopy. And I remember you said, she doesn't understand vegan physiology. And it was like, right. Okay, I'm just not even going to do that. I'm just going to Skype with Dr. Klaper. It's way more fun. Dr. Klaper, you answered so many questions that we get all the time about why the vegan diet has failed some people and about why people can't lose weight. I think everyone should just keep listening to this replay because there was so much great information. You're just a wonderful guest. I want to have you back because you're just so great at answering questions and you're so passionate. And I love you so much, and I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. And thank you so much for being on this call. I'm Chef AJ at www.eatunprocessed.com. My guest tonight was Dr. Michael Klaper, and I make healthy taste delicious. Good night, everyone.